Um, Good evening, everybody. In a couple of minutes, we will start our very, very interesting talk with very interesting speakers. Let's wait for other attendees that can join our event, and we can start in 1 or 2 minutes. So, once again, hello, everybody. My name is Medea Metreveli. I am the director of Literature Initiative Georgia, non-governmental organization based in Georgia. Today, we will have a very, I think, interesting panel talk with very interesting speakers about the role of publishing during peace crisis and post-crisis situations in the world, and particularly in Ukraine, Georgia, and Armenia. Let me introduce our friends and speakers. Mr. Juergen, president of Frankfurt Book Fair, very big and good friend of Georgia, Ukraine, and Armenia. And Oksana, Shchur, a literary critic, journalist, and literature project curator from Ukraine. Good evening, dear colleagues, friends.
Good evening, Medea. Good evening, Oksana. Good evening to the audience as well.
Good evening. Nice to see you here, and thank you for inviting me to join this interesting discussion.
So thank you once again for your readiness to participate today in the frames of our very interesting event. Today's event, as you know, is held in the frames of the project, The Visual Stories from Armenia, Georgia, and Ukraine, and that is granted by Creative Europe Cooperation Grant that aims to develop and promote comic genre in partner countries, offering a number of trainings and webinar sessions for comic artists and writers. The final product of the project will be a comic book with stories by 3 women writers, one from each country, outlining the women's perspective on war, their role in it, and its impact on their lives. The consortium partners implementing the project are Literature Initiative Georgia, ARI, Armenian Literary Fund, and Ukrainian Publishing House Komora. I also would like to inform our attendees who are joining our talk that Q&As are open, and if they might have any questions for our speakers, they can message their questions, and we will try to ask these questions during our event, and our speakers will try to answer all of them. So, as you know, Georgia, Armenia, and Ukraine, 3 countries, 3 post-Soviet countries, years now have declared their Western aspirations and principles as the basis for our country's development and freedom, despite very active and strong influence of Russian propaganda. Last year, Georgia and Ukraine have been granted European Union candidate status. Ukraine already opened negotiations with European Union for membership, and Armenia also declared to apply for EU membership even this year. Unfortunately, Russia's main goal is to create some kind of iron curtain between Western world, EU, and our countries, with different mechanisms. It's a war in Ukraine and very tragical events that we are following during past 2 years. Occupation of Georgian territories, negative role of Russia in Nagorno-Karabakh case that has, as a result, a new wave of thousands of ethnic Armenian refugees, and very strong Russian and anti-Western propaganda. So these are mechanisms that, unfortunately, Kremlin use very actively against our societies, our countries. Last year, Georgian society rose up against the government's attempt to close democratic spaces for media and civic societies, introducing in the parliament agents law, so-called Russian law. This week, Georgian government reintroduced the draft of the same law with a new branded title, the law for organizations pursuing the interests of foreign power. Despite of new massive protests during last 3 days and the international reactions to this reintroduction, Georgian government is planning to prove it. And this process will actually contradict the whole effort of strengthening the democratic institutions in Georgia and its integration in the European Union. The processes are really very, very dramatic. And my first question is for Juergen. Juergen, who knows Georgia, Ukraine, Armenia quite well. We have cooperated with Frankfurt Buchmesse years now through different interesting cultural projects and cultural events. So what do you think, Juergen? What should be the reaction of Western world, Western cultural institutions observing the situation in Georgia, in Ukraine, in Armenia? Because the main thing is that our aspirations, our European aspirations are not enough to evict Kremlin's influence in our countries. And we really need very strong voices from our partner countries, especially from cultural platforms as well.
Yeah, I do believe that we have to strengthen the civil societies in your countries. And we have to have not only intellectual exchange, but we have to exchange many ideas, and we have to meet, especially authors with critical voices in all of our countries, especially here in Frankfurt, but also at the Frankfurt Book Fair in October again, because this is a place where people from 120 countries are going to meet. So we have to raise awareness, and we have to raise awareness of our common history, and which is in a European tradition. I think this is very important. And we have to exchange these ideas to learn from each other. And actually we have to network so we are friends and we can stay together.
Thank you, Juergen. Maybe Oksana would like to add something also to share her impressions about events that are happening in Georgia as well. Yesterday, it was very big protest in front of Parliament, and I'm sure that you have seen this news as well.
Yes, I've seen this news for sure, and I support Georgia personally. I cannot comment on the Georgia topic because I am not expert in international relations with Georgia. I am much more about Ukraine. But I think that our history in long-term perspective is so common, and probably our views and a bit national characters. I just finished to read Ukrainian translation of Nino Kharatishvili's book Age Life, and I saw that there are so many common things between us that for sure I support Georgia and Georgian intelligence as well as democracy in all these countries which I mentioned. It is just logical. You know that you cannot be the expert in some area and in some news deeply, but when the question is about democratical values, for sure you can have only one answer, which is logical. And I'm sure that the same is with Georgian colleagues when they are asked about, for example, situation in current Ukraine.
Thank you, Oksana. Thank you, Juergen. According to the Ukrainian Book Institute, which collects data on publishing industry in Ukraine, the number of titles published in Ukraine cut in half from 70,000 to 9,000 in 2022 after Russian invasion in Ukraine, killing hundreds of people and destroying the infrastructure. Oksana, how do publishing houses in Ukraine work during the war? What are the main challenges during these hard times?
Thank you for this important question, and that it is the next after Georgian question as well. And I think the biggest challenge for Ukrainian publishers during the war and since the beginning of full-scale invasion is the war itself and the economical crisis as following. Because you probably know that the number of titles is cut, but many publishers, including, for example, Komora Publishing House you're collaborating with now, usually say that people didn't stop read books, and it is wondering and important because, but there are not the same books they've read before. For example, it was the same in 2013, 2014, when they started to look for example, historical books, books about their own roots, and also different belletristic and fiction to understand what is happening with them before in their history. But in the same time, books on the war topic, on the migrant topic, are not so popular in Ukraine as abroad, because abroad people for sure know to understand what is happening inside Ukraine, and Ukrainians probably doesn't need to read about things they are see every day and listen to when we are talking about sirens. This is one thing. Second thing, when we are talking about economical crisis, for sure, books are much more expensive. Paper is imported. It is delivered abroad. Now it is impossible to buy paper in Russia, which was cheaper before, and now there are many logistic problems. And book production process is longer, and printing houses and also bookstores are usually damaged and destroyed. And Kharkiv city, which is near Russian border, is under bombs every day, and for sure it is difficult to print books when you are under bombs. It is business, and it is about salary, and it is also about dignity for sure. When is connected with dignity, it sounds a bit weird, but yeah, and it is definitely hard. And for sure, we need to remember about human factor, because many people who are professionals in publishing area, in publishing sphere, who are experts, who are designers, who work at printing factories, who are writers, and so on, they are in the army now, and or they just killed by Russian army, or they just cannot work so hard and so fast because of circumstances, and they're exhausted for sure, and everything is different. So generally, yeah. Generally, people is the most important source. We usually think and discuss the financial support aspect, but people is the most valuable source. Also in book industry, and we also need to remember about this during all these discussions about publishing industry during the war.
Yeah, it's always about the people behind the books, yeah. And if these people are hurt, then publishing, writing is damaged completely. Yeah, it's so important to get international support, whatever's happening in your countries, especially in the Ukraine.
Federation of European Publishers, together with the Ukrainian publishers and booksellers, has worked on a first list of necessary European and international financial support measures for the Ukrainian book sector, and has made formal requests to the European Commission and the European Parliament to have appropriate budgets to restore the sector, as well as Ukrainian libraries and schools. Juergen, Frankfurter Buchmesse, having a huge experience of cooperation with countries challenging peace crisis, wars, could you share with us information regarding support programs initiated by Frankfurt Book Fair and other international book and literature platforms in support of Ukrainian book industry, or supporting other countries like Georgia, Armenia, or other countries that are facing peace crisis worldwide?
Yeah, of course, as I said before, for us, it's always important to meet the people behind the books. Everybody who's working. You talked about the translation of Nino Harata-Willich's book. Yeah, so we have to support all these initiatives. And in the past years, we have been in very close dialogue with Ukrainian partners, such as the Ukrainian Book Institute, the Goethe Institute. The Director General just visited Kiev last week for a few days, and he worked in Kiev for some time. So it's so important to have this exchange. So we are in touch with the Book Arsenal, the Misteki Arsenal, Fedomo. And last year, we carried out a large project with 9 sub-projects together with them, with some support from our government, especially the Ministry for Culture. Some of these projects are still running, such as the support for the International Book Arsenal Festival or events here in Germany by Ukrainian authors. We already visited the International Book Arsenal Festival with our German collective stand before 2022 and organized publishing workshops on site. Since it is no longer possible since the war, we have transformed these workshops into a special program for publishers from Ukraine and neighboring countries, which takes place here in Frankfurt during the Frankfurter Buchmesse, and this is supported financially by our Foreign Office. And this year we are going to have it again for the 3rd time here in Frankfurt. And it's a pity that it has to take place in Frankfurt. It should happen in the Ukraine, not here. Yeah. But the bridges between Frankfurter Buchmesse and the Ukrainian book industry are very strong and diverse. I'm very happy about that.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Juergen. A recent study by UNICEF found that 30% of youth between 15 and 24 living in conflict are illiterate. The risk of not supporting children in continuing their studies and building literacy skills is a lost generation that struggles through adulthood due to lack of critical life skills. Arab countries, Syria, Ukraine. We can discuss different examples. Oksana, what is the role of Ukrainian publishers and writers in finding new ways of communication with their readers to cover their needs, especially needs of young generation? Any new platforms initiated by literary arena in Ukraine, ebooks, social pages, maybe?
So it is very important and complicated question, which can be divided to several ones probably. And so first of all, I need to mention that now Ukrainian readership is divided geographically because there are few additional millions of Ukrainians who read and who need books in Ukrainian abroad, which means that books should be delivered to all around the world. And now interesting things happened which should be happened before for sure. For example, many Ukrainian books in Western or European Union libraries, which are e-books and also paper books, and also Ukrainian paper books in different European Union bookstores, which is not easy because of economical reasons. I mean, some taxes, because Ukraine isn't in this European Union trade area. But anyway, it works. And also Ukrainian online Ukrainian internet bookstores can deliver Ukrainian books from Ukraine to European Union to private persons. It was hard before 2022, and now it is it is easy. You just click, and you receive this parcel with Ukrainian paper books, and that's why it is a bit concurrency between bookstores in European Union and also between these Ukrainian big bookstores, but also in terms of e-books, for example, Ukrainian publishers use some tools that they developed during lockdown and pandemic times to reach their new audiences geographically. For example, there are many Ukrainian e-books also in European Union public libraries, or people can buy them at publishers' websites as well. And it is very important also for youth, for sure, because there are young generation which is partly abroad, and it is a topic of language. They are studying German, French, other languages, and they can communicate only between themselves or at home with their family. And books, for sure, are necessary for imagination, for literacy, and so on. And it is very nice that they are not isolated. And it was it was a joke in 2022 when all these bombing bombings were unusual for Ukrainians, that now it is impossible to read books, paper books in trains because they are full of refugees. But now cellar basement is the best place to read paper books because it is no internet, and you can just stay and wait till the end of air warning, and and now many people also started to read for it is like art therapy, reading as art therapy. And I know that, for example, especially in Kiev, there is crisis of literature festivals or the biggest book fairs, and for publishers it is not very nice because it was important in terms of direct sales and in terms of money, but there are many new bookstores. I cannot remember the time when every month or every week new small independent bookstore is appearing, and it is something very interesting. And I guess that it is about community building, and these bookstores now are like literature houses, literature centers, and people can travel abroad, for example, because now it is harder than before, but they need to be together, not just read, but they want to get together in book clubs. They want to come to events, to book presentations, and it is a new way of something new. And in future we will see what it is. And online tools are important for sure for spreading the word, but this offline sense of being together, it is it appeared 2 years ago probably, and we'll see the results in several years, I guess.
Thank you, Oksana.
So that's very good to hear, Oksana, actually, that people are encouraged to meet, and somehow bookstores, I'm not sure what they're really safe, but at least there's a space where you can meet and exchange ideas. And I just wonder, when I'm following Serge Jardin on Instagram, I actually don't follow him as an author. I'm following him as a soldier for freedom as well. So that there are two roles as a writer, and in this case, it's obvious.
Yeah, the writer became like a rock star, and it is interesting process. So it is a very high price for watching this process, but it is really something new and very interesting. And independent bookstores are very popular because they have this very special atmosphere and communication, and the special list of favorite books which are prepared by literary critics. We still don't have media about books, only some, but now independent bookstores are much more popular among the audience than bookstore chains. But it is predictable because bookstore chain, you can just come, take book and go. And independent bookstore is about this human being energy, or how to say.
Yeah, it's a community. It's a community of people who share ideas and who are also open to listen to others. I think this is very important, especially in times of war. Yeah, you have to be open and listen to many different voices.
Yeah, and it's also very, very emotional observing how artists, writers, you mentioned Jardin and other writers and artists are in very hot war lines in Ukraine, and it's really very, very emotional to see heroes to how to say, to working so hard to protect their country and their freedom. Most publishers responded that the state's actions should focus on presenting Ukrainian culture abroad, as this would help build a positive image of Ukraine and increase trust against Russian propaganda. In parallel, some of Ukrainian publishers call international partners to close all ways for Russian literature, stop the activities of all Russian publishing houses, subsidiaries and booksellers related to Russia, ban the sale of translation licenses to Russian publishers. Juergen, in international publishing arena, is international publishing arena ready to boycott Russian publishers, writers, until the Russian troops are still located at the territory of Ukraine? Do you think it will help to decrease the level of Russian propaganda in Europe, in Germany, and other European countries, and it somehow will help Ukraine and will support Ukraine?
Actually, I'm not a big fan of boycotts or book bans, because this is always some sort of censorship. I think it's more up to us to actually train and educate readers so they can decide. They don't have to read Russian books. Yeah, it's our responsibility to decide and to question everything we are reading. Yeah, we shouldn't ban people. Yeah, it's about the people. It's not about governments. In this case, I see the government as an evil. It's not the people. Yeah, so we still should listen to different voices, but it's our decision. I don't need to read Russian books.
Oksana, maybe, thank you, Juergen. Oksana, maybe you also want to add something regarding this question?
So, as Ukrainian, I can add a lot, as all the Ukrainians. But first of all, regarding Ukraine, I can say that sanctions against Russian books or books which are printed in Russian Federation, which are relevant now in Ukraine, are very helpful for Ukrainian publishing market and especially for Ukrainian literature in terms of concurrency and this about market, yeah. And in Ukraine, language quotas in cinema, in book publishing, in other culture areas, in media, usually helped for Ukrainian organizations to develop because they received space and air and money at least. Regarding international market, recently I did a series of interviews for Ukrainian media about types of boycotts and protests. I talked with different people from different international book and literature festivals, including Tobias Voss, who describes the topic how to protest better at international book event. And he proposed some recommendations and commented some cases, also Ukrainian, but not only Ukrainian cases. It was very interesting case study. And I don't think that Russian literature or Russian book industry abroad is discriminated, because I see lots of Russian books also here in Berlin, in Germany, and everywhere. And I'm discriminated. They are not discriminated. We have big Russian bookstore in Russische Haus at Friedrichstraße in Berlin. We have very fresh newest books in Berlin public libraries, and this is pulp fiction, crime novels which are published by Exmo, Alpina, and another big Russian publishers. And they are popular. People read them, and everything seems to be okay. Honestly, it is one more case which need to be discussed, probably not here. When, for example, these cases when Ukrainians are not to take part in the same discussions at the same stage with Russians, and it makes sense because Russian culture is so popular, so famous that when you have good, bad Russian at the same stage, he's much more bright for foreign audience than Ukrainian one, just because Russian culture has this very long history and very bright image, and it were so many attempts for promotion of Russian culture before for hundreds of years. It is it is not the same, and probably you may agree or disagree as Georgian. And also I know many cases also just now that we have, for example, at festival in Lillehammer, which will be in May, we have Ukrainian poet at the opening ceremony, very famous bright Ukrainian poet who reads poetry. And then in the main program, two not Russian but Norwegian writers will discuss situation in current Russian Federation, corruption, and some economic things. They're respectful men with all this intellectual background, and they are talking about very serious things, not poetry, but it is it is the right of curator and curatorial view, but this is yes, this is point of attitude which can be discussed or can be changed in future, and for sure it needs many years for changing this minds and for growing new experts and new people. But now this is in that way.
I think Oksana's right. It's a long process, but we have encouraged activities. Yeah, we have to, on the one hand, we have the readings of the poets, as you're saying, but we need to have serious discussions, and we have to be outspoken. Yeah, about what's happening to us right now in this society, which is not only happening in the Ukraine, Armenia, or Georgia, but you see it all over the world right now, and we have to encourage people to speak about what's going wrong. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I cannot hear Medea anymore. I think we lost her somehow.
Sorry, I agree with you that it's very challenging issue, and there are different positions and different views. But when we are asking these kind of questions, representatives from Ukraine, I think we can understand their positions as well. And of course, European Union countries, Western countries might have different perspectives of this issue, and we of course understand this situation and these circumstances. President of Ukrainian Publishers and Booksellers Association called for the international book community to support Ukraine through buying rights to Ukrainian books, making Ukrainian books available on bookshop shelves around the world, charitable support to help Ukrainian libraries, financial support for those who have lost loved ones, and different other activities. From Georgian side, I would say that we are very proud on behalf of my colleagues and Georgian partners that during past 2.5 years, we have hosted a number of very interesting events, artistic exhibitions, festivals. Many Ukrainian books have been translated and published in Georgian language thanks to Georgian publishing houses. So only one example in 2021 in Batumi, we have hosted Odessa Literary Festival, traditional literary festival in Black Sea region that couldn't be organized that year, the first year of war, and Georgia, Batumi, and Georgian writers and publisher hosted 3 very interesting days dedicated to Georgian, Ukrainian literature and books. So, Oksana, what is the role of the international publishing community in supporting Ukrainian book and literature? And can you share with us successful international examples? We heard very interesting information from Juergen, what have been done by Frankfurt Book Fair, but can you share us other examples from other countries?
So, first of all, yes, I think that this support in representation of Ukraine at different book fairs, including Frankfurt Book Fair, of course, but also Bologna Book Fair, Prague Book Fair, London Book Fair, and many others. When organizers of book fairs are supporting Ukrainian publishers and Ukrainian national organizations with fair space pro bono and with other things, with funding. It is. I started this conversation with the word dignity, and it is also with help to save your dignity if you don't have money, because all the money is for the army, and you don't have money for culture. Your colleagues from different countries and governments of different countries are coming to support you, and sometimes also in terms of programming and content, which is much more clear for this new foreign audience and etc. And for me, it is the most important and the most noticeable. And also, I can tell a bit about the UK as a country which also supports Ukraine a lot, and British Council Ukraine and British Council in the UK created UK Seasons of Culture, and in the frame of these seasons, they supported Ukrainian delegations also at different literature festivals, including, for example, Cheltenham Literature Festival and London Book Fair, and so on. And some publishing houses also prepared and published Ukrainian translations of Ukrainian books for their local children. And it wasn't about some commercial income, but it was a big support, not only to donate, but also to spread the word and to help to new names. And there are also different residencies, like Artists at Risk, and there are for writers, for translators, unfortunately not for ordinary people who are professionals in publishing sphere, but mostly for creative sector. And they in the very beginning of full-scale invasion, they just helped people to survive and to have a place to survive. And now, after 2 years, I see these people very often, and they say that it is just 1 month when you can sleep normal. And it is it is very small because support, because you cannot cover thousands of people, but it helps to survive. And for sure, we know many stipendiums and many publishing houses and literature agencies which donates and send money to Ukraine, and sometimes support big and small literature initiatives, and and it is very, very, very big support. I don't know if we have the list of that somewhere, but I think it is in general, it is about all the people and all the organization in this area, in all this country of European Union or Western world, European Union plus the UK, and and we can only be thankful for them, because it is emotionally and also financially very helpful.
Yeah, so we have to encourage these institutions, actually to invite writers and authors. And what you've been saying about the professional people in the book industry, so we try to include in our fellowship program, we try to invite people to Frankfurt by support by many other institutions, as you mentioned, British Council, here at the Goethe Institute. I know that the LCB in Berlin, Literarisches Kolloquium in Berlin, or the International Literature Festival. So there's a lot of initiatives, but it's still not enough. So we need to encourage them, and we need to find more budget for it.
Yes, for sure. And the employers in Ukraine, organizations in Ukraine, also need to request their foreign partners abroad about support and describe this need, these needs. And prepare some reports or some researches because people in Ukraine sometimes say that Western professionals don't care about these and these needs, and they just sometimes don't know, because you know that it is usually dialogue.
Yeah, it's a dialogue, but I think it's also important, Medea, and this I'm asking you to share experience if you are from Georgia, Armenia, or the Ukraine, yeah, because you have a similar experience with the threat coming from Russia, yeah. And I think it's strong to be together again. So we need to have exchange platforms there as well, where you can exchange this experience and hopefully hope.
Juergen, I have one question in between. So can we say that in European countries, after the war in Ukraine and after the invasion of Russia in Ukraine, the interest towards Ukrainian literature or culture was somehow increased, and more publishers decided not only publish books just to support Ukrainian writers, but really try to find new voices, try new texts to discover them and to present these new titles to the readers.
Yeah, there has been a movement after the war started actually to look into books on the Ukraine, but also books of Ukrainian authors. But now we have to be very careful and that this initiative is not going to stop. Yeah, people get used to things so easily. Yeah, so we have to create a joint effort. Yeah, that this movement stays strong. And we have to work also with translators to get more titles translated, not only in German, but in many European languages. Without translators' books, we would be lost, yeah? And also what Oksana said about the independent bookstores. We also need the independent bookstores here, yeah? Because they are the ones who have the literary titles, who can promote these titles from the Ukraine.
Yes, thank you, Juergen, Oksana. So in between, I just would like to say that we have some questions from our attendees, and I will try to ask them after our main talk. So thank you for sending to us your ideas and your questions. Please be very active. So as we know, every year, Frankfurt Book Fair invites writers, publishers from the regions that face peace crisis, giving them stages to talk, as you also mentioned, Juergen, and to share their experiences. Can we see books, words as weapons that can bring a peace and increase solidarity among different countries? Why I'm asking this question? Because one Ukrainian young and very promising writer, my friend, wrote in one interview that I don't believe that books can stop wars and mass crimes because dictators mostly don't read books. So what can we say about the role of books, literature, and culture against wars and mass crimes?
I don't believe, actually, I share your friend's Ostap Slivinsky's opinion, yeah? Books don't stop wars because humans are as they are, yeah? But actually, they might protect some people, yeah? Because they understand that we have to live together in peace, yeah? Because it's about creating awareness. And this is what we're seeing in Frankfurt. During this time, we have these people coming from all over, even people who wouldn't usually talk to each other. But when they talk about books or they want to hear each other's authors, then we have some sort of a safe space. But to export this safe space in a zone of war, I think this is not possible. So I'm with the Ukrainian writer, actually. But it's important to have books, to create awareness, to learn what's happening in the world. Because if we even learn how cruel the world can be, maybe we think and make up our minds that we shouldn't be as cruel ourselves.
Oksana, so what do you think? Is the role of culture very, very strong in these situations?
Yes, the war of cultures is very strong for sure in this situation, because now we are in a situation of decolonization, and it is empire against independent state, and it is longer than 2 years, it is longer than 10 years, it is a very long story. And if we wrote, if we had much more books, also translated into foreign languages, maybe we will prevent this war. In this, maybe it would not be so hard. But books, books can stop the war. We see it. Now I know it very well, but for sure they can prevent some things. They can explain some things, especially for different people. We know, for example, that the head of our neighbor state likes books by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Nobel Prize winner, and this is one of the grounded statements of his ideology and his attempts to have Ukraine under this Slavic umbrella, or how to say. So literature matters, and books matters, and it is not the reason. And we had this also this statements, that how to write poetry after Auschwitz, and so on, and but it is only the words, as we say, and culture can prevent some things in future, and we can stop to write books. I mean, writers and some other creative professionals. We can stop to draw. We can stop to tell our stories, because you know that in future the winner will write the history, and the winner, I hope it is Ukraine. Yeah. The winner must be ready to write, because we didn't write so many books in the past, and now it is our chance to say our word and our version of story, very long story.
I like the picture of a literary umbrella very much, yeah. So books can protect us from the rain, but not from rockets, yeah. So, but it still helps somehow.
Yeah. Thank you for your very interesting answers. UNESCO has verified the damage to more than 240 Ukrainian cultural sites, including museums, libraries. Deliberate attacks on culture during war times are not new. Attacks on cultural heritage sites in Syria, we know, by ISIS, are among the better known efforts to erase culture of the attacked territories. Oksana, why cultural landscape, heritage, and language are strategic targets during wars, not only in Ukraine, but generally worldwide?
In Georgia as well.
In Georgia as well, yes.
Because it is the history and memory and reasons for the nation, for the state to be. And when you destroy something, it is you can say after that it wasn't held, that it wasn't exist. And it is very easy when you destroy a museum, when you burn books, when you burn archives, which happened in the closest past, as well as in Ukraine, but also in other countries, including Russian Federation. It is so easy to say, yeah, it wasn't here. And you know that there are no artifacts and very less libraries, for example, at occupied territories, and education and school system is changed, and everything is about also education of the future citizens. And if people didn't hear the stories, didn't read another books, and didn't know about who they are, it is so easy to change their mind and to present them another version of story. I saw such people from the 20th century. They were rather old when I was a child, and they also said that, for example, it was no genocide, no hunger in Ukraine, and no repressions, and probably there were some, but not in our village. Not people just died. People just died. And this is also because we didn't have so many books and all these big novels about that. And if we had them, especially translated into key European languages, now it would be easier to explain who we are. Not only with current poetry, but also with this gross big book.
I'm not as pessimistic. I do believe actually that culture is part of our individual identity, and stories will stay on, yeah, but maybe they change, but you can't take them away. Yeah, and they can keep coming back. You can destroy museums, but you cannot destroy the stories which have been told in these museums, yeah. But we need books, yeah, and we need translations.
Thank you, Oksana. Juergen, I have last question. There are so many questions we can discuss during today's talk, but I also want to share with you afterwards some questions and ideas from our audience. So, artists and writers, cultural industries in countries that face peace crisis, call their governments and international partners to support in different sources, because it's clear that immediately after the end of the war, it will be difficult to invest in culture on a large scale. But we have at least to prevent the death of cultural institutions, festivals, publishers, and bookstores. They also see high risks in terms of freedom of speech and expression in long-term perspective, if the cultural landscape will be totally destroyed. So, based on IPA's last statements, number of publishers operating in Ukraine is also going down and down from 1,053 to 563. Do you see any risk that freedom of speech and freedom of publishing can be under threat in long-term perspective based on these dramatic figures? Oksana,
Yes.
Juergen.
Yeah, yes, indeed. I think culture publishers are under threat everywhere in the world. Yeah, physical threat in the Ukraine, but censorship. We see book ban activities in the United States, where some states say we don't want to see these books in our schools, even if it's books which have been around forever and which are part of the Enlightenment, the Aufklärung. Yeah, actually, yeah, we have to defend writing, we have to defend publishing, we have to support let's say the diversity of publishing. And if you lose half of your publishers in such a short time, that's a huge threat.
Yeah, I totally agree, because my first thought was it is much more about media, not about books. And after that, I thought about this decolonizational process, and now Ukrainian libraries are out of Soviet literature and so on, which now is normal because it is a long process, a bit late, a bit delayed, but generally after the end of war, it will be time for discussions and time for democracy. And Ukrainian society needs to build a democracy and develop democratical values. And for sure, it is not about bringing some Soviet or Russian literature or literature about I don't know, people at occupied territories or people with another views and so on. But it is it is about readiness to remember of another's point of view, and also that in Ukraine books are not burnt for sure, but there are, for example, big discussions in social media which are sometimes very aggressive, and one of the reasons that we don't have literary criticism and literary media and discussions in media in news and and it is like some compensation for that, but generally in future we need to make it much more polite and it is a long process. It is a long process, and it is normal that we are in process, we are in action now. But some people who are leaders of society and who has strong political views just need to remember that this is only a step, and that we have the aim if we want, for example, to join the European Union with its system of values and so on, and they usually need to keep it in mind, especially writers and leaders of the area. And when you forget it, the bad story can start again.
Yeah, during war times, it's very important to support publishers, to support them to survive, because after war period, it will be very, very difficult to have a very strong publishing arena and sector, and it might occur some problems in terms of freedom of speech and, of course, other challenging processes as well. Juergen, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, on the other hand, we are seeing these new independent community bookstores already in war times. So I'm quite optimistic when this war is over. And because reading is the basis of democracy. Yeah, so we should do everything actually to encourage reading. And therefore, we need the writers, we need the translators, we need the bookstores, we need the publishers, whether it's print, online, whatever. People need to read, and we have to encourage people to read. And also when we had last year at the book fair, we talked a lot about the Ljubljana Manifesto. We have to encourage people to read longer texts, yeah, to discuss texts. And so I like this idea of these bookstores where the people meet and discuss books.
Thank you, Juergen, Oksana. Now I would like to ask to suggest you some questions from our audience. What is the name of the young author? I think we are talking about the quote that I mentioned during our talk. One Ukrainian writer, Ostap Slivinsky, mentioned in one of his interviews, I don't believe that books can stop wars and mass crimes, because dictators mostly don't read books. So it's very interesting Ukrainian writer and journalist, Ostap Slivinsky. So there is a question from Armenia, as I see. How about helping writers to navigate during these uncertain times? For example, we have some financial problems, but also some ideas in terms of and support in terms of creativity. They hesitate to write novels or stories on contemporary events, saying that it's too soon, On contrary, publishers want stories that are hot. I think it will be a good idea to have conversation about how to write sensitive topics. I think that our participant wants to ask our experience and ideas about how to support young emerging writers to create very interesting texts, not only for local markets, but also for wider international audiences. Maybe any ideas, Juergen, Oksana?
Actually, you cannot stop somebody who wants to write from writing, yeah. So you have creating writing courses, whatever, but if people want to get publicized, they will find a way. On the other hand, whether this is professional will find a market, that's another question. Yeah. But I think it's not the market we should try first, just the inner voice, yeah, has to be visible.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But also we know that there are many interesting programs and seminars, especially for young generation emerging writers in creative writing. So these programs also somehow help writers to become more active, more interesting, and attract audiences, even to develop and shape some themes and topics that they are interested to work on. There are some messages for Juergen and for Frankfurt Buchmesse. I just want to read one. As a response to whether Frankfurt Buchmesse is taking any steps towards involving countries like Ukraine, Armenia, and Georgia in certain programs, I was selected from Armenia to participate in the special program for publishers from Ukraine and neighboring countries. I would like to say that it was a wonderful platform, not only to share publishing experience we have in our countries, but also the common political situation. And we come to see how similar are the problems and issues we face. So, Juergen, Frankfurt Buchmesse is a place not only for sharing publishers and publishing experiences, literature experiences, but also share our local political experiences as well. Maybe you want to add something?
No, that's what I said. It's about the people behind the books and to professionalize our industry. I hate the word industry actually for publishing. It's not an industry. It's about individuals. Yeah, we have to have more of these programs, and it's whether it's writers' residences, as Oksana said, or whether it's having professional people being exposed to the world of publishing, the world of ideas. Yeah, and I'm talking to our friends in Jerusalem right now about the Jerusalem Fellowship. Yeah, we have a lot of initiative in this world. Yeah, and we have to showcase these initiatives so people can apply and we can expose them to our world.
So from my side, I just would like to say that for Georgia, it was really very, very big experience to become guest of honor at Frankfurt Buchmesse in 2018, when during 1.5 years, Georgian writers, artists were traveling in German-speaking cities in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, having a number of interesting events, readings, etc. And it helped so much to present Georgian, European side, European values, European culture, and our European aspirations. And thank you once again, Juergen, you and all German publishers, translators who work with Frankfurter Buchmesse, your great and brilliant team that was supporting our presentation in Frankfurt as a guest of honor. And from my side, I would wish to see Ukraine and Armenia as a guest of honors in Frankfurt, presenting their great culture, great literature and writers. I don't know if there are any plans or any negotiations, but I am sure that after these hard days, after war in Ukraine that will finished with the great victory of Ukrainian people. I think that Ukraine will be very, very interesting guest of honor in Frankfurt Buchmesse. And of course, our Armenian colleagues and Armenian writers, that their voices are also very, very, very important, I think, for European audiences.
Yeah,
If you want to comment.
Yeah, our heart belongs to the book people in the Ukraine right now. Yeah. And they have deserved it. They are resilient and they have deserved it. And we have to work on it, that we don't forget it. Yeah. What's happening, and push the positive things.
So, Oksana, Juergen, if you don't want to add anything.
Only thank you for this big support, Medea, and thanks for Georgia, and also our Armenian colleagues and all the countries engaged in this project, that you're organizing these small talks, which are pieces of puzzle of a big support, not only support, but it is useful support, support which makes sense. And and this is my last sentence for today. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
it was very nice conversation.
Thank you so much. Glory to Ukraine, glory to Georgia and Armenia. And I would like to use this possibility and express my gratitude to European Union, to our partners in different European countries that are supporting our countries, our societies, our culture, because without you, without your friendship and support, it will be difficult to survive in these very, very hard days that we have faced during past years. So thank you, Juergen. Thank you, Oksana. Good luck and hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank
All
you.
the best.
Bye.
Bye.